When you hear world-class manufacturing, what's the first place that pops into your head? For a long time, the answer was probably somewhere far across an ocean. But things are changing. Right now, some of the biggest names in technology, medicine, you name it, are making huge bets on Tijuana. So the big question is, why? Let's get into it and look past the old assumptions to see the real proof in the performance.
So let's start with that central question. What actually makes a manufacturing hub world-class? If you think the answer is just about cheap labor, you're missing a much bigger and frankly, way more interesting story. It's really about a whole mix of things that come together to create a serious strategic advantage. And the best proof? Well, it's the companies that are already there, thriving.
I mean, just take a look at Samsung. This isn't just some factory. This is their largest TV manufacturing facility on the entire planet. And it's right there in Tijuana. Think about that for a second. That's an enormous vote of confidence in the location's capability.
And it's not just about TVs and consumer electronics. You've got Medtronic, a global giant in medical tech, running state-of-the-art facilities there. We're talking about incredibly complex, life-saving devices that have to be made to the absolute most demanding standards in the world.
And if you need any proof that this is all about the future, just look at Foxconn. They've just dropped a staggering $900 million on a new plant to build cutting-edge AI servers. This isn't about assembling yesterday's tech. This is about building the literal hardware that's going to power the future.
All right, so let's dig into the first piece of this puzzle, the proof in the numbers. Because, at the end of the day, these massive business decisions, they're driven by real, measurable results.
Let's circle back to that Samsung plant for a moment. They're not just making a handful of TVs here, they are cranking out 19 million units every single year. Let that sink in. One single facility in Tijuana is responsible for a full 20% of all of Samsung's global TV sales. That's not some side project. That is a strategic linchpin of their entire global operation.
Now how about Medtronic? See that number? 5,500. That's how many people they employ in Tijuana. And these aren't just any jobs. These are highly skilled positions, manufacturing unbelievably sophisticated products, things like aortic valves. It's incredibly precise work, done at a massive scale. And look, quality is everything, right? Especially in medicine and high tech. There's just no room for error. That's why this achievement from Jabil is so important. They became the very first company in all of Mexico to get the ridiculously tough Med-Accredit certification for plastics. This proves, without a doubt, that operations in Tijuana can meet and even beat the toughest global quality standards out there.
Now this slide, this really breaks it down. This is for another medical giant, Stryker. And it's not just one single win. It's a win across the board. Just look at the table. They cut their cost of goods sold by 17%. They sped up product development by 12 whole weeks, and they boosted their gross margin by over 3%. That's a triple threat win, more efficient, faster to market, and more profitable.
But, numbers like that don't just magically appear. They're driven by people. And that brings us to the second, absolutely critical pillar here, the human advantage. And we're talking about capability, not just cost.
This quote from the source material just hits the nail on the head. The whole story isn't about finding cheap labor anymore. It's about finding skilled professionals, people who can operate complex machinery, manage sophisticated software, and uphold world-class quality standards. It's a total shift in the narrative.
And this is just a brilliant example of that in action. Thermo Fisher didn't build a factory. They opened a software center of excellence. They started out with 45 people back in 2016. Now, they're collaborating directly with their teams in California on tech that helps with cancer research, and they're planning to grow to over 200 software developers. That just shows you the incredible depth and scalability of the high-tech talent you can find there.
So you might be wondering, where does all this talent come from? Well, this number explains a lot. Mexico graduates over 83,000 engineers every single year. And the Baja California region, specifically, is packed with universities focused on engineering and technical programs. There is a deep, constant, and sustainable pipeline of talent ready to go.
Okay, on to our third critical pillar, geography. And believe me, in today's crazy, unpredictable world, location isn't just some detail on a map. It's a strategic weapon. And Tijuana's proximity to the U.S. market is an absolute game changer.
This slide just puts it in perfect contrast. When your factory is just hours away from your biggest market, you're playing a completely different game than if it's weeks away. It means you can do just-in-time manufacturing. It means you can respond almost instantly to what your customers want.
And it means you don't have tons of cash tied up in inventory sitting on a boat. It's the difference between being a speedboat and an oil tanker.
And here's what that power looks like in the real world. From its base in Tijuana, Hyundai can get parts of finished products to 90% of all U.S. manufacturing plants in just 4 days. That's a level of speed and logistical integration that offshore locations, well, they just can't touch it.
And that proximity has built something else that's really powerful, a dense, thriving ecosystem. As you can see, these huge industries are all clustered together. So you're not just building a factory in isolation. You're plugging into a whole network of specialized suppliers, expert services, and shared knowledge, especially in electronics, aerospace, and medical devices. It creates a powerful advantage.
So, okay, we've looked at the hard numbers, we've looked at the people, and we've looked at the location. What's the big strategic takeaway here? Why does any of this matter for a business leader who's thinking about their global operations?
Well, it really all boils down to these 4 pillars of competitive advantage. The proximity we just talked about, that creates incredible operational resilience. The workforce, that gives you scalable talent. All of that has led to advanced infrastructure, and holding it all together is a favorable trade framework like the USMCA. It's the combination of all these things that makes the value proposition just so powerful.
And that really leads us to this final crucial idea. The success you see from companies like Samsung, Stryker, and Foxconn, it's not a fluke, it isn't a one-off thing or an exception to the rule. It's a formula built on these strategic advantages that other companies can and are successfully replicating right now.
Which brings us to our final question, something for you to think about. After seeing all this, take a hard look at your own operations. Is your supply chain built for the kind of resilience you need in today's world? Or is it still just focused on yesterday's definition of cost? Because the answer to that question could very well define your future success.